Just unmute for a minute. Hello. Oh, okay.
Is that, did your cat do the paint a self-portrait behind you?
Yes.
That's what I
He's
thought.
remarkable. And I can show you the two of them. See over there?
Oh.
They get their sunbathing time. Any other cat lovers amongst us?
Does everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's 6:30, the witching hour, and so I think we're ready to begin. Looks like people are here. I'll just double check for a minute to see. Oh, we have 35 participants already. I think we have a pretty good turnout, so I think we'll begin. So anyhow, good evening. Welcome to Community Board 2 Manhattan's Traffic and Transportation Committee meeting. I am Shirley Secunda, and I'm the chair of the committee. And the way I'm going to introduce you to my committee is by calling attendance. And committee, just kind of go like this when I call on you, so everybody will know who you are, okay? Right, so gotta put on my glasses to look at the list. Okay, so Ritu Shatri, there you are. And Joe Gallagher, are you there? Say hi if you are. Okay, we'll come back and see if you're there. Janet Liff, I see you, right? Ed Ma, I see you too. Ed, wave your hand. Can you do that? Okay. Well, whatever, we have him there. And Dan Miller, is Dan, there you are, Dan. Thanks. Lois Rakoff, are you with us? There you are, Lois, hi. And Anthony Wong?
Yep, here.
Picture. There you are. And Adam Zeldin, are you with us yet? Okay, we'll call on you later. Okay. Before I go any further, there are probably some of you here that don't know our routine, so I'll just tell you a little bit about it. We have 3 items on our agenda tonight. We address each item separately. Whoever is representing the item does a little presentation, an overview or whatever. Then the committee makes comments, asks questions, and then we go on to our guests who we call attendees. We are panelists. So that is basically how that part happens. Once those 3 items are done, we go into what we call business session to discuss all those items. I see Joe Gallagher right now. Joe, would you please make yourself visible and raise your hand? Joe is another member of our committee. And incidentally, are you there, Joe?
He is.
Somebody called there.
His video.
Eric Botcher, I think, is there, and he's in his Shirley Secunda for some reason. But hi, there's Eric Botcher from Speaker of the Council, Corey Johnson's office. Hi, Eric, and welcome. Anyhow, where was I? Business session. Okay, we discuss our 3 items, and we come to our conclusions about each of the items. Sometimes we write resolutions, sometimes we just do a report. And that's about how it is. And I just want to call out Ritu Shatri again. Ritu, can you raise your hand again? And Joe Gallagher, where are you, Joe? I see you disappeared again. Okay, so let me just tell you that Joe and Ritu are my backup folks. They're the real techno people who will be taking care of all the backup support information that we need. Ritu, you raise your hand, right? And Ritu, by the way, is the vice chair of our committee. And also behind us all with his support is our chair, the chair of Community Board 2, Carter Booth. Carter, can you raise your hand? There he is. Okay. So now we're just going to go right into item number 1. And I think I need to just bring you up to date a little bit on item number one, because things have changed a great deal since our last meeting, which, oh my God, was only a week and a half ago. But since that time, the New York City Department of Transportation has come up with a complete program on open streets. And we have both Eric Botcher here tonight, as I said, from the Speaker of the Council's office, and Jennifer Leung. Jennifer, are you here with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great. There
I'm on
she
the line.
is. For us, she's got a little phone symbol. Hi, Jennifer. Thanks for joining us. And
Not a problem.
okay. So they will be giving us the information on this new DOT Open Streets program, which actually has a whole bunch of guidelines and also requires that anybody who is interested in having an open street do an application, which is a little different from lists. So tonight, for all who didn't know, we are not dealing with any kind of lists. We are listening to what this program is and what the deal is with applying. So, Eric, I think you are going to give us a little overview first, so please, you're on.
Sure. Thank you so much, Shirley. Thank you, Ritu and Carter and everyone on the committee for having me. I'm here with Patrice Comerford, who is the Speaker's representative for CB2.
Hi, Patrice.
We are very excited about this program, and I'm not going to talk that much tonight because I think the Department of Transportation will be able to outline all the details about it. But in essence, the Department of Transportation came out with some guidelines for what kind of streets they're looking for that certain streets would have to meet to be part of the program, but also an application that stakeholders would fill out if they want to participate in the program. We have blocks throughout our district who are excited about the program, and then we have other blocks who don't feel that it would be a good fit for their streets. So I think that this is a good way of asking the blocks who want to be part of it to step forward and apply. And the Department of Transportation will outline that today. But I really want to thank the community board for having this forum for folks to come forward. Our office is available 7 days a week for anyone who'd like to reach out. Patrice, maybe Pat, we could put our contact info in the chat so folks can reach out. But we look forward to working with all of you to make sure that this is a big success for the blocks who are excited to have it. And thank you again, everyone, for having me on here. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Eric. And thanks, Patrice, for joining us too. I don't see you right now, but I'm so glad to, oh, there you are. Hi there. Anyhow, onward now. And Jennifer, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so this is Jennifer Leung from the Department of Transportation, and she will be giving you an overview of the new Open Streets program, and will also be available for any questions that you have following her overview. So you're on, Jennifer.
All right, thank you, Shirley. As you mentioned, my name is Jennifer Leung from the Department of Transportation, Manhattan Borough Commissioner's office. I'm going to give you the brief overview of what the Open Streets is and also the process and also the guidelines that, that we came up with. So just to be clear, an open street is simply a street that allows pedestrians and cyclists to use the roadbed as an additional space for social distancing. It does allow for local deliveries, emergency access, pickups, drop-offs, and also the ability to retrieve a parked car. Like anyone who lives on that block will be able to go in and out and still, get your car. What the street is not for is really through traffic. like we are not, it's not permitted pretty much. Anyone who's trying to, come by on a side street and they're trying to get through, they shouldn't be using that street to get through. It's only if you're doing, deliveries, emergency access, and other stuff that I mentioned before would be allowed. Now, the other thing that is also not what an open street is programming, seating, and anything that encourages gathering. For this open street, there's really no set time frame at this point. The hours are actually pretty flexible depending on who is managing it and what's their capacity. Last week, we did send out guidelines that we shared with the community boards, the electeds, and also the bids. The typical guidelines that we have set forth is pretty much, we generally don't want to have any proposals that's on the bus route, truck routes, or hospital corridors. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't want anyone to propose any of that, because there could be other treatments that we might be able to implement, such as like the sidewalk extensions. Like, depending on the location, you might actually consider that. Now, so that's for not to propose bus route, truck routes, or hospital corridors. Then another guideline that we have set forth is to have a partner organization that actually, knows the community pretty well and able to demonstrate some of their capacity to maintain and not maintain, but to manage the open street itself. They will be kind of required to provide us with a staffing plan. There's also, let's see, another one would be to, like, whatever the proposal that they come up with, there's really no minimum of number of blocks that they want to consider or a maximum number of blocks. It could be, one block at a time. It could be an entire, quarter of, consecutive blocks. But that's also, depending on the partner's capacity to be able to man those particular blocks. Another one would be when it comes to going back to the schedule for these open streets. I know that people have heard it's from 8 to 8. That's not necessarily the case. We're pretty flexible. It'd be up to the managing partner to come up with a schedule for the days and times. I mean, we prefer it to be at least, up to 6 hours. But, if your capacity is, not available to be able to maintain that many hours a day, then you could actually scale that back. But that's something that we could definitely work with you on. For the at each block, there should be barriers that are going to be removable. The removable barriers will, they should be staffed and manned, where you'll be able to, any vehicle that's approaching, you'll be able to move the barricade and let them through. And, once they leave, then you'll be able to, close it back up. Blocks that have public garages, we would like to try to avoid that. But if it does get proposed, we would have to do additional outreach to the garages, and we also need to make sure they understand what the program is about. I mean, there are a good amount of garages that are out there, and I know there are streets that people want to, still have this program on. And, it shouldn't be a reason for you not to apply, but keep in mind that we would need to do additional outreach. These are some of the basic guidelines that we have. I mean, there's certainly other questions I'm sure everyone may have that I may be able to answer later on. I might get to some of the responsibilities of the partners themselves and what they are expected. As I mentioned before, with the timing of, or whichever street gets selected, and then there is a schedule for the closure, they would be responsible to place and remove barriers from the start and the end of the day. They would be, as I mentioned also before, to be able to, any vehicles that come in and out, they would be able to open and close it. They would be responsible to monitor the closure throughout the day, and if there are any issues, they should be reported back to us and also to NYPD. What else? Let's see. They would also be helping us posting and replenishing the signage that mandates the social distancing, and also making sure that any vehicles that does come in and out in that space are following the 5 miles per hour rule, to make sure they go really slow and, not, hit anyone. Then, let's see, the other thing is that they would also be helping us to regularly speak to folks and make sure the hours, the guidelines, that they are aware that this is what's going on that particular open street. That's what they're going to be, that's pretty much the responsibilities of the partner. Now for the city and NYPD, we are able to provide some assistance in this. Like we would be able to provide some of the barriers, like the barricades that you see most of the time with the French barricades and also the sawhorses. Those are something that we would use. The other thing that DOT may be able to also use is probably the planters. We do have a certain number of that we can probably use for some of these closures. Then the other thing is that we're still working on some of the signage, but I think it's clearly simple signage that that says 5 miles per hour, local access only. That's the type of signage that we'll be using. And of course, with the city, we would be looking at all the applications that come in. Now, I think I would get into talking about what the process is going to be like. All the submissions will be sent to us. We are definitely open to a lot of the recommendations coming from even the community boards, any bid, any other neighborhood organizations. There is a link. I think I will share that onto the chat in a bit. The process pretty much involves us reviewing all the submissions on a rolling basis. Once we review them and whatever is selected, we would actually share them with NYPD, get their feedback, FDNY, and any other relevant agencies that may want to give us a feedback, especially it's case by case and, depending on area. I mean, for example, if it was a hospital that we would actually, share with them as well. Now, due to the nature of the informal and temporary nature of, due to the nature of the informal and temporary closure of these temporary open streets, we are implementing these fairly quickly. Any changes that are, we can also make any changes if it doesn't work. Once these streets get selected, they become announced, and then we end up posting them on our website. So there is a website on DOT that actually lists all the current open streets at the moment. I think we may also be developing a map, but I don't know when that will be live yet. I think that's all I have for the process. Yep, that is all I have right now. I know it's a lot. I'm sure there are a lot of questions, and hopefully I can answer them.
Right. Thanks so much, Jennifer. And you will be putting that link to the guidelines in the chat, right? So that people can access that too. And I think right now we're just going to be open to questions. I will point everybody to the little raise hand symbol in the, if you hit participants, you will see a participant list, and at the bottom, there's at the lower right-hand side, it says raise hand. So this is both for our attendees and our members of the Traffic and Transportation Committee and Community Board 2 members. So first, as I said before, we will go to the committee, and then we will be going to any board member that might want to ask a question. And you two, are you ready to get to these folks? And I see Janet Liff raising her hand. You see that too? So Janet from the committee. And okay, do you have a question?
Sorry. Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. One, I understood that there were 2 applications, one for people who have previously worked with DOT, and another application for people who have not, engaged with DOT. So should I go? I have a few questions. Should I say all of them or go one by one?
Jennifer, which would be easier for you, to answer one by one or answer the whole caboodle?
One by one is fine.
Okay. All right. So my first is if there are two different applications,
Mm-hmm.
because I was given two different links, or is that still the case, or is that still the case?
There's only one link that I'm aware of. It's a SurveyMonkey link.
Okay. Yeah, I had gotten two. But so you're aware of there's just one application for everybody. What are you doing about insurance requirements? If it's just a local neighborhood association, casual, no big budget.
There's no agreements being signed here.
Okay, so it's not being required, no agreements. Okay.
Nope.
All right, great. Hours, I have heard it could be up to 24/7. Is that true?
No, that's not true.
Okay.
So maybe one thing I did not mention as I was going through my list of things, there are locations that may not have any partners. We may be able to speak or work with NYPD. So some of these locations that if it is managed by NYPD, their hours would be from 8 to 8. Now, I know some folks have, like some of the applications that I've seen, they have proposed 24/7 or all days. I don't think that's the intent. I think we need to make sure like any block is open up to a certain number of hours to allow, the rest of the time for, regular traffic to get through, or, for certain blocks that have, commercial deliveries. And those also has to be kept in mind. So yeah, it's not 24/7.
Okay.
Can I just interrupt? Jennifer, can you please look into the two applications? We've had a second confirmation that there are two links, two different applications. So could you please look into that? Thanks.
I would definitely look into that. Do you remember what's the other link, or which links that people are using? Because
Janet,
I know
can you
there's
talk
one.
to-
Now, I think we have to go to questions and answers. And whatever application, you mean applications actually from associations, Ritu?
No, to apply to actually manage.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an important one. Sorry. Okay. Yes.
Can I say one thing? There is an email, and then there's a link for SurveyMonkey. I don't know, maybe some people decided to use the email to put in their application. Maybe that's what it is. Because there is an email.
What you meant, Ritu, is the process for application or the form for application? Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Muted. Unmute.
Sorry. Ellen Bear and Janet Liff both cite two different application links.
Well, they each can just email them in and they can resolve them, right? We don't need to keep
So we'll take
discussing
care
it.
of that.
Oh,
So,
yeah. And we
like
can
a
send
few
out the guidelines also to whoever wants them. We do have copies of the
So I
guidelines.
just have a couple more. On one of your applications, I read it was preferred but not required to have the barricade be manned. Because I do know there's some streets where you can position the barricade in such a way that you can leave enough space so the car can go around it. People are pretty good about being cooperative. I mean, is there some wiggle room on having that barricade manned, 12 hours?
That is a possibility. It's, we prefer it to be manned only because we don't know, who's coming by, who's getting through, and, it's preferred. But then that is a flexible option that we may consider.
Okay. All right. And I'm just curious, have you gotten any applications so far from anybody in CB2? From community groups?
We do, and we're still reviewing it right now.
Okay, could you tell us, and we're just curious how popular the program is, how many?
So for each day, we're getting a handful.
Okay.
Right now, let's see. Right now, the only area that's close to CB2 is actually in CB3, the Lower East Side. Well, Lower East Side bid actually have 4 streets that they are going to be managing.
Right.
Right now, I haven't seen anything in CB1. CB2, I've seen a couple, but
Okay.
we're still reviewing, so I don't know. You know, maybe you guys will get one.
Okay. I mean, it's nice to know that people are applying. Just as curious.
Yes.
Is it
Um,
possible for you to share the locations in CB3 with us?
The locations, yes, it's Orchard and Ludlow between, I believe it's Delancey and Houston. And then also Stanton and Rivington between Allen and Essex.
Thanks. Okay.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
Yep,
folks,
no
all
problem.
your questions?
That's
And
it.
now I see Lois has raised her hand. Lois?
Can you hear me? Wait. Can you hear me? Unmute.
Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can, Lois.
Okay. Thank you. Some practical questions regarding the barricade. Now, how do you get the barricades? And after the hours of that street, that open street, where do the barricades go?
Well, there are different types of barriers that we would be able to use. If it is a DOT provided one or it's an NYPD provided one, a lot of times some of these barriers could still remain on the street, on the sidewalk, right next to maybe at the intersection. You know, each day what happens is that during the time it opens, I mean, when it closes, you would just, you know, you probably would have to lock it up and then you unlock it and then you leave the barrier onto the street.
How do you lock it up?
You would probably, I would assume that at those intersections that there would be our own light poles. So you would have to have a chain
Sorry,
light pole.
I didn't hear you. A what pole?
Yeah, a light or signal pole.
You lock
At
up
the
the
intersection.
barricade to a light pole?
Yes. Similar
Okay.
to what they do sometimes when there are parades, sometimes they do have those barriers locked up to or chained to a light pole.
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna have any partner with those barriers and bring them back to their offices. And I doubt that that's what we are asking them to do. They would be probably remain not at, you know, obviously not on the roadbed, but off to the side.
Right, I understand, because many block associations do not have offices. Maybe a bid might have an office so they could store it there. But
Yep.
block associations do not have offices. Okay, so I wanted to clarify that. Now, is there an application fee?
No.
Okay, when is the application due? I understand that some people have applied already, some groups have applied, and so it's open. Is there a close?
It's open.
When
No.
does it close? The
There's no
application?
closing. It's a rolling
Okay.
application.
Okay, in terms of the Community Board 3 and those streets that were put in the application, was those applications put in by the council member or by a block association or a neighborhood association? Who put in the application? If you could
For the 4 streets,
please
they
tell
were put in
us.
by the Lower East Side bid.
By the bid. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. And
problem.
that Lower East Side bid put in for those streets that you named?
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you. It's good to know that now Janet brought up a very good point about insurance and that there's no agreement What does that mean?
Usually when we have a partner assist us in maintenance and managing, we would have like a maintenance agreement. But in this case, we will not be doing that. Then nobody will be able to assist us in this effort.
Okay, that's good. Now, the next thing, what about the backup with the PD? How does the PD help monitor the partners?
In this case,
yes.
In this case, if there is a partner, PD would not, I mean, PD will be around, but I don't think they will be monitoring them. When I was mentioning PD, if there are areas where there's no partners, no partner whatsoever, but there are folks who are interested enough that they want to have some open streets, we may be able to work with PD to have them as a resource to manage that particular open street.
Okay, now in terms of the volunteers, with a bid, there are staff members.
Mm-hmm.
And there are partners like store owners and so on that are involved in a bid. But I'm talking about a block association or a neighborhood association. So the volunteers are the ones that put at the barricade, and they stand by the barricades, and they decide who could go through and who can't go through. I'm talking about vehicle traffic. They decide who could go through and who does not go through.
Typically they would allow anyone to come through. I mean,
by car,
I think
vehicle.
There are details with that. I don't know what those details are or whether they allow to ask or not ask. Because typically, if it was PD that's standing there, they would probably be asking questions to see, hey, what's your reason to come to this block? But at the same time, if it's a volunteer, I don't know. Right now, I don't have the info on that, but I'll definitely find out.
Okay, now I know this might seem strange, but in terms of the volunteers, and these are unpaid volunteers
Mm-hmm.
from a block association, do you suggest that we get walkie-talkies so that we could communicate? The volunteers can communicate to the other volunteers, perhaps that are in the middle of the street or at the other end of the street. I mean, there might be this might be multiple streets, not just one small street, like, I don't know, West 3rd to Bleecker, like Little Thompson Street. Maybe like, let's just say maybe Bleecker or LaGuardia. These are larger streets. So you have to get volunteers that are not working on that day. Many
Lois,
people.
we've got a lot of other people with questions, and this is really drifting into some of the minutia of blocks.
I don't think it's minutia, Carter, because this has been.
We've had a chance to ask 8 questions, and we've got members of the public from block associations and members of the board who want to ask some questions, and I think we can circle back for sure.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
I found your questions quite relevant, Lois, so we'll get back to you.
Thank you, Shirley.
Some other folks a chance. Yeah, so I see Betty Kubo V. Weiss, who is one of our new members. Hi, Betty. Unmute yourself, Betty.
I thought I did. Thank you. I was just wondering if this has already been addressed, my apologies, but what qualifies as the types of vehicles that are technically like limited from entering the streets? Like, are bicycles still allowed, or skateboards? And then more specifically, like scooters versus electric vehicles versus other smaller vehicles. What kinds of things are allowed all the time versus the ones that are restricted by the barricades?
Simply pedestrian, cyclists. The open street is really for them. I don't think we categorize what vehicles can and cannot access the street. What we're trying to restrict is to not allow pretty much your standard type of, through traffic. That's what it is. Like obviously any truck that needs to make a delivery on that block or that, you know, if someone's moving it, they would be allowed to enter.
Thank you.
Is that clear? Okay.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just want to interrupt a minute. There, I would guess ambulances, right? And
Yes, they are allowed.
cars, that kind of official type of thing. That would be allowed, right, Jen?
What was that?
That would be allowed, right? Any
Emergency
delivery,
vehicles, yes.
emergency of any.
Deliveries, yes.
Okay.
It's pretty much like if you don't live there and if you need to get from point A to point B, if that street is blocked off, then you just shouldn't be going through there anyway. Like it's not for you to get through there just because you saw it that it's blocked up. It's blocked off.
Okay. Betty, you done? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
So, okay, we've got a couple of more raised hands, and this first is William Benish, who is another new member of Community Board 2. So welcome, William, and let's hear your question.
Thank you, Shirley. My question is just bouncing off a little bit off of Lois's question. And so Jennifer, do you think it would make sense to put together some kind of comprehensive guideline for all the volunteers, since we're asking them to man the barriers without any police presence? So basically, here's who you let in. If it's a private vehicle, do you or do you not check it? Obviously for emergency vehicle, let them in immediately. And then stuff like, here's what to do with the barriers after the time is over. And if that's going to be put together, is that something that makes sense for us to advise on? Thanks.
Certainly advise on that. At the moment, I don't know if there's going to be a guideline that tells people how they should be doing, you know, when they're manning these barriers. But certainly, I will definitely bring this back to my team.
Okay, thank you. And let's see now. Somebody else on the committee, Adam Zeldin. Adam.
Thanks, Shirley. And please excuse me, I was a little late to the meeting, but as I understand it, the barriers can only be up from 8 to 8. Are there other types of barriers or other signage that could be used 24/7 to reduce the staffing need to just kind of, you know, notify members of the public that this is not a through street, this is a street for local traffic only, there's a reduced, you know, speed limit and so on? Like, I guess from my perspective, and sorry if this was addressed already, but from my perspective, it makes more sense to just have it sort of, you know, reset the expectation for what that street is throughout the day.
So the signage is not going to have the time that it's in operation. I think the signage will be standard. So anyone who, you know, whether or not, depending on the time that someone's coming through, obviously if it's no longer the time, so like it's not between 8 to 8, then people would know that this is still, you know, local street. Like that signage.
Sorry,
like
just to clarify, I'm not referring to putting the time frame on the signage. I'm referring to just leaving the, you know, signs or whatever out 24/7, just setting the expectation that this street is a local street all day, every day.
Okay. Let me bring that back because I'm not sure, like, if the signage is going to stay 24/7. I mean, maybe it could be, but just in general, like going back to the signage itself, there's not going to be a time frame for it. And I know that the 8 to 8, that would be only if PD is the one managing it. If it's a partner that you have, organization, it may not be those hours anyway. But I think it does make sense if there is a 24-hour signage that indicates that, though. So that's a good suggestion that I'll bring back.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, and next is Katie Bordenaro. Hi, Katie. Do you hear me? Well,
I hear you. Do you hear me?
I hear you loud and
Oh,
strong.
that's so wonderful. I got the right button, pushed the right button. Thank you, Jennifer, for the presentation, and thank you to the committee for holding this session. I just want to be very clear, Jennifer, because you said something that I hadn't realized before, that when the street is open, bikes will be allowed to use the street while people are in the street, and that poses problems for older people because we don't move as quickly as the bikes. So is there some way that, how do you see this happening and to avoid that conflict between walkers or people playing and bikes, which can move rather quickly on our streets?
So typically with cyclists, they are supposed to follow the same rules as cars, which means they should also be going 5 miles per hour, going slowly and not trying to, run anyone over. I know that's always been something that we've heard, that it's always not enforced.
Or observed.
Yeah, that's true. But typically for the open streets, it is shared between pedestrians and cyclists.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Michael Levine. Michael,
Thank you, Shirley. Can I be heard?
we hear you.
Hi, Jennifer. How are you? Michael Levine, formerly of Community Board 1, now of Community Board 2. Good to see you again online, Jennifer. Jennifer, I have a question, and I came in a little bit late, so I missed a little bit of the discussion of the removal of the barriers. If I understand what you were saying, local neighborhood associations and bids would be responsible for removal, and this is my issue, storage of the barriers. Living on 10th Street between 5th and 6th Avenues, our experience whenever we have the Pride Parade every year and any other parades on 5th Avenue, 5th and 6th Avenue are closed, and when the activity is over, the barriers, although they may seem to be removed an hour or two after the activity is over, have a way of working their way onto the sidewalk, which creates an obstruction for pedestrians. And especially in this time when we need to maintain social distance, I'm not sure I fully understand what safeguards there are that the barriers would be removed and stored in a place that is not in the way of pedestrians walking on the sidewalk or trying to cross the street. If you mentioned this, I apologize for missing it, but I'm asking again, what guarantees do we have that the barriers would be stored safely off the sidewalk and out of the pedestrian right-of-way?
Well, I would say that if the sidewalk is not that wide, there is potential to have barriers stored on the along the curb.
On the street side or on the sidewalk side?
On the street side.
Which means it would be taking up what would be a parking space.
Well, it would be at the intersection, meaning where it would be by a crosswalk, I would say. Well, it's not going to be in the crosswalk, but it would be usually in a lot of blocks. There are some daylighting, but parking the cars don't go all the way to where the crosswalk is located.
So may I suggest that in the guidelines it's made very clear the locations at which the barriers can be stored once the street is open once again. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And anybody else from Community Board 2 or the Traffic and Transportation Committee? Otherwise, I think we're going to go back to Lois. Lois, you're still with us, right? And can finish up with Lois's questions. Well, I guess I'm going to go back there.
Am I on mute?
Lois, I see you.
You see me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
I hear you fine. And Jen,
can you hear me?
Hear her too?
We can hear you, Lois.
Okay, all right. Now, it's a very interesting thing about what Katie said regarding bicycles. Here's the question. Is it possible for the partner that's doing the open street to have a regulation that the bikes dismount, the bikers dismount, and the people on the scooters dismount and walk through that open street? Is that conceivable? Did you hear me?
That is certainly, I can hear you. That is certainly something that we have spoke about. I don't have an answer right now, but let me bring that back and I will see what we can do with regards to cyclists dismounting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And scooters, people, the scooters go. I'm not talking about like scooters. I'm talking about skateboards. That's what I'm talking about. Skateboards, recreational skateboards.
Okay.
Hey, Shirley,
Yes.
I have a question for Jennifer. I can't raise my hand as one of the co-hosts. But
Okay, I hear your voice. Go ahead. Is that Carter?
yeah.
Sure.
So Jennifer, one of the things I think that we're starting to hear, and from outreach to some of the local community groups, is that maybe there needs to be a couple of different types of open streets, depending on the nature of, if you've got a block association that covers 2 blocks, that's very different than something that spans multiple blocks. And I think in our area, most of our residential areas where some of the community groups might be interested in, it's probably not appropriate because they're only 1 lane to have mixed usage. Is it something you could bring back to maybe have a couple of different levels of open streets so that some of these concerns might be better addressed, so that we could have more streets if bicycles aren't a concern?
Okay, we can certainly, I can certainly bring it back. I know that depending on the partner, it's something that we would be willing to work with them on.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Jennifer. Oh, and we got Katie again, or were you there in the first place, Katie? Is this another question, Katie Bordenaro? No, I think not. And I think everybody's done asking their questions from Community Board 2, except me. Now, I don't know, can you see this? Jennifer?
Yes, I can.
I'm holding up. Okay, I received these 2 signs. I'm going to show you the other sign too. From Streets Blog. And let me just tell you what they say. I know you probably know, right, Jennifer? But anyhow, the one I just showed as best I could. Sorry, gang. Can you see it? A little bit, right? Okay. So this one says New York City open streets, local access only, speed limit 5 miles per hour, share the road from, and then there's a time on it. For your safety and the safety of others, please practice social distancing by remaining at least 6 feet away from others. Wear a mask in public. Stay home if you are sick or feeling unwell. Wash your hands frequently with warm water and soap, or use a hand sanitizer. Avoid touching your face. And it is signed by, let me show you, DOT, and
Okay.
that's NYPD. And so that's one. And I'll just read you that other one that I showed everybody. I'll show again as best as I can. Okay, this one says no through traffic, 5 miles per hour. And as I say, I received that from CheckPeds. And I'm just wondering if CheckPeds received that from DOT. Is that the kind of signage that DOT is issuing?
That's a good question. I think that is very similar to what we have, but right at this moment, I don't recall what is it exactly.
Okay, so can you get back to me on that? And just let me know, because, okay, the follow-up question would be, if DOT is not doing that kind of signage, does that mean that it would be upon the organization that is monitoring the open street to create that signage themselves? Or could DOT help them in creating that signage?
I think most likely we would be helping them create the signage.
Okay, thanks.
I think we would want consistent standard signage anyway.
Okay. All right. So you saw the signage. I can always send it to you too. Do you want me to do that?
Send me a copy. Send me a copy because I haven't received anything myself. So.
Okay, will do. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Jennifer, you're done with us, but now you have our guests. So let's just see.
Okay. Thank you.
see. Okay, you ready? So our first guest who has some questions is Samir Lavinia. Again, Samir, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Samir, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I'm a resident who lives in CB2, and I just had a quick question about where like a resident would express interest. It sounds like this is mostly for community like organizations. If a resident was just like, oh, this would be a nice thing to have on my street, is there a place we can go and just let the DOT know it's something we would want, even if we can't physically provide any presence?
You can certainly reach out to us. I will post a email. You could definitely always reach out to the community boards, your electeds, and also with the bids to show them your interest, and we can go from there.
Perfect. But it sounds like the form you were talking about, the SurveyMonkey one, I should not fill that out. Is that correct?
Well, that's
I'm not saying you shouldn't fill it out. I'm sure we received it anyway.
Okay.
I mean, unless it's something that tells you that you didn't submit it correctly, but I doubt that.
Okay. Thank you.
okay. Mona Lawrence, I see. Mona, do you hear me? And are you ready to talk?
I just unmuted. I wasn't at the last meeting, so I have a couple of basic questions. One is, are you voting on this cluster? I mean, to do it tonight or not, or are you waiting for?
We are not voting on this. This is purely informational on the program that DOT is running for those who may have an interest in applying.
Okay, and then how long will the Open Streets program be in effect, do they think? I mean, when is the dividing line between it's not continuing anymore? How do they decide upon that?
Jen, do you want to answer that, or should I, or should we both?
We can both do it.
Okay, you go first.
Well, from what I know is that there's no, as long as we are on pause and as long as the governor is saying, this is part of his executive order, we're going to have this.
Okay. I have a couple of other questions that follow up a little bit with what others have asked, because I figured that's what you were going to say. I think it's really important to understand. I don't understand this. I live in a neighborhood that's a lot of people are not active in their community. Some of them don't even know about the community board, and some are very active. So I guess one of the questions is what constitutes, and this is for the DOT also, what constitutes a neighborhood association or stakeholder? It presumes by saying that the majority of residents in any given neighborhood want this program to be implemented. So in our neighborhood, the streets are basically free of a lot of cars and vehicles. So people, if you're walking down our very, very narrow sidewalks, you can right now not have to worry about it. So and go into the street just as long as you look left. Bicyclists go on the sidewalks and whenever they want. That's just the way it is. I don't even understand that's another question, but so what constitutes a neighborhood association? Who can apply for this? How does the DOT determine that the community organization is reflective of the community? Will the neighborhood be notified ahead for input, as was just asked? And the other question, in other words, what's the process for reach out to the community at large? And is the community board traffic and transportation? Okay. Okay, wait, were you asked that? Oh yeah, and regarding the bicycles and the motorized scooters, they're dangerous. So I've heard about this proposal, and I thought it was for safety for pedestrians. And we're not talking about police presence. So how, even when there is police presence, are you going to actually enforce that bicyclists or any kind of motorized scooter or whatever are going to, why are they even there? I mean, why are they even allowed on this street that's supposed to be there for pedestrians for safety? I guess that's my major thing. Why? Okay, those are my two major questions.
Jen, did you get all those questions?
Yeah, those are my two major questions. Why are bicyclists and scooters permitted at all for a pedestrian, for a block that's going to be used, or blocks that are going to be used for pedestrian safety during this time, when they can have a lot of room on the streets that every time I'm walking on the streets, and I walk a mile at a time with, to go to the Sasaki Garden or walking my dog. So the streets are very free. Broadway, you can go in the middle of the street. It's a little different now, but just a little different. So, and the sidewalks are plenty wide enough on Broadway. There are some issues.
You know what? You know what, Marna? Jennifer's going to forget your questions.
Yeah,
Jen,
I know. I'm going on
about answering the questions.
Hi, Jennifer. You know me from the phone.
So you asked why our scooters and bicycles are, what was it? Why are they not prohibited?
Yeah, why are they allowed to be on those streets to begin with? Why is it's not just a pedestrian safety pedestrian street, which makes some sense given the circumstance? Why allow bicyclists and motorized scooters, et cetera, on the street? What's the point of having 5 miles? I thought it was just so that cars that live there locally might, you know, get onto their block. But other than that, why are they allowed onto the street? How is that pedestrian safety? That's one question.
Well, okay. Well, going back to what open streets is, we did designate it to be shared between peds and cyclists. I don't think I have a better answer to that, unfortunately. I don't know what else to say about that.
But let me just say that my opinion on that is that bicyclists and motorized scooters are not appropriate for the safety, you know, an open street that's there for pedestrian safety, so people can walk on the street, children can play on the street, et cetera, et cetera. Bicyclists go on the sidewalks now illegally, so, and motorized, some other motorized scooters.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Marla. We're just doing Q.
By the way, it's Marna.
They're not doing statements tonight.
Yeah, okay.
Just information.
I understand,
Good
but
questions.
that's the question.
You had another question?
Yeah, the other one was, how does the DOT determine what constitutes a neighborhood association? I mean, what is the process whereby the entire community that may not be as active, you know, for example, it's an example, New York State Liquor Authority, they put up a notice, says we're going to do a hearing, blah, 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 for this particular applicant. So the entire community can see that posted, okay, whether they go on the community board website or not. So how does the community at large know what's going on? Is there a process for that, for community outreach?
So to go back, when you were asking about how do we select or, you know, review a application, you know, that's coming from a block association or a neighborhood group, that's a really good question. I mean, part of our guidelines is just to know that if they are working in that community already, then they would be able to show us what they are, you know, who are the people that's going to be able to, you know, pretty much if they have the capacity to do what we need them to do, like, as I mentioned, to, you know, place the barriers. If there are volunteers that can do that and do it successfully, then we would be okay with that. But at this point, like right now, the agency, it's not like we have a list of all the different associations or the organizations that, you know, that we know of that would be willing to do this. I know there might be a lot out there that maybe they didn't apply because they think that there's going to be a lot of, you know, work involved. But the thing is, we want to make this, you know, something quick and easy and not, you know, that intensive. I mean, you know, I would think that any group that is willing to have some time, like I said, going back to what I said earlier about the hours, it could be a couple of hours a day. It doesn't have to be every day. It could actually be, you know, 2 days a week. I mean, you could also propose that it, you know, be, you know, something that you want to do, you know, to try it out, and we might be considering that. And the thing is, since we are going to be monitoring this, if it doesn't work, then we may not be able to continue having the open streets for that particular location.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, we got a couple more folks. Janet Hirschberger. Are you with us, Janet? I see your hand raised. Maybe you need to unmute yourself. Janet Hirschberger. Okay, we'll move on and maybe come back Albert Bennett. Hi, Albert. Are you with us? Does everybody else hear me?
I hear you.
Oh, okay. So Albert Bennett, are you with us? And would you like to ask a question?
Hi, Shirley. Yes, I would.
Okay.
Jennifer, for many years on our block on Morton Street, when we had our White Elephant sale, every year the police from the 6th precinct delivered 2 sets for each end of the block, 4 sawhorses, and the wooden pieces that fit between them, and would require at least 2 people to man them. But they were delivered the night before. They were set up on the sidewalk very neatly. And at the end of the street closing, we would fold them up and put them on the other end of the sidewalk, which was a very good system. Is anything like this possible for these street closings?
Yes. I think that's exactly the type of, what we're looking for our partners to do, is be able to set it up and then place it on the side at the end of the shift or end of the open streets.
The problem, as I said, is they have to be manned. So we'll have to find at least 2 people on our block who are ready and willing and able. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes. You want to say something else, Jennifer? No. Okay. Now, Janet Hirschberger. Gone. Janet, maybe you're not unmuting yourself? Janet Hirschberger? Okay. We will
She's been
try.
unmuted.
Pardon me? Okay, but we do have Barbara Backer. Hi, Barbara. Do you hear me? And are you ready to talk? Barbara Backer?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for having the meeting, Shirley, and thanks, Jennifer, for coming. There are 3 points I'd like to make. One, on your guidelines, Jennifer. I didn't hear this, but perhaps it is included for the eligibility of streets. Did you include construction? Because on our street, which is Bleecker, between Mercer and LaGuardia, it's one total big construction area with the NYU building going up. And this might be true in smaller areas. So would construction be something that would make a street not eligible?
That's a good one. I know it's not in our guidelines. It would make sense not to propose an open street where construction is going on. So let me bring it back. Thank you for that.
Thank you. My second point is in regard to what other people have spoken about, which is not allowing bicycles and motor scooters. I would like to include skateboarders on that. My concern is, and Pat knows about this, skateboarders are quite often very, very dangerous. And when they see an open space, they'll just zoom down. And you just can't get out of their way. And sometimes if they fall, the board goes one way, the person goes the other. And if there are people on the street, it's dangerous. That's my second point. And my third point, as a healthcare provider, I'm very concerned about ambulances going through. If, as you said earlier, the barriers are not necessarily having to be manned, if there's no one at the barrier, and you have to get in an ambulance to the middle of the street, you don't have 5 minutes to get out of the ambulance, pull back the barrier, get back in, and drive it down the street. Someone's life, it's a matter of minutes, 4 to 5 minutes to get that person to a healthcare facility. And if the barriers are not manned and the healthcare provider has to get through, I'm very concerned about that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okie doke. So I'm going to try once more. Janet Hirschberger. Are you there, Janet Hirschberger? Well, I guess that she's not.
Janet, just if you're on your device, if you're on a phone, you may have to unmute yourself on your side. We've given you all the permissions to speak on this side, or if you don't have a microphone on your computer, those might be some of the issues. You can raise your hand if you are able to resolve those and going forward.
Okay, I think that her hand is no longer raised. So that's that. And I think we are going to, oh, there she is again. So Janet, can you
Yes.
speak?
I'm here.
Do we hear you? No.
Yeah, I'm
You
here.
have a question?
Oh, there you are, Janet. Okay, great. Okay. So please do address Jennifer with your question.
I think that's Jennifer who's
Oh, it's
responding.
Jennifer. Oh. I thought the voice sounded familiar. Okay, I think we have a problem there. Carter, is there another way that Janet can get her question?
If Janet's able, she could type her question into the chat. You can reach the chat function on the bottom of the screen. You can submit your question via
move
chat.
on to DOT then afterward, because I think right now we have to move on. And okay, the committee, ready? So we're on to the second item on our agenda, which is a request for a temporary extension of the bicycle lane on 6th Avenue, which is also called Avenue of the Americas, from 8th Street to Canal Street during the coronavirus pandemic. And Janet Liff, our own Janet Liff from our TNT committee, is going to present the request and the information behind it. So Janet, you're ready, right? Unmute yourself, Janet.
Unmuted here. So this is I'm sure DOT, I don't know, Jennifer, you're new, you might be new here, but the request for a full-time, for a permanent bike lane on 6th Avenue began in 2014. Then 2016, we got the segment in our community from 8th Street to 14th Street. We now know you're about to finish, now we have it from 8th Street to like 36th Street. We know you're about to finish it to 59th Street. And just sort of following up on the resolution we passed last week that, during this pandemic, it's essential to provide safe passage for all of our essential workers and for cyclists, and especially as an alternative to taking the subway, which is now not 24/7. We are requesting that you give us a temporary bike lane from Canal to Greenwich. And by providing that link, because you'll effectively, we would now have a continuous link from Canal Street all the way to 59th, which actually would get somebody all the way to 110th. That's what we're asking for. And right now there's a lane that comes up Church Street. So you have Church and then it dead ends. And then the next lane that you can pick up is at 8th Street.
Right.
So that's about it.
Okay, so committee. Anybody have any questions? I see that Lois has her hand raised. Lois Rakoff.
That wasn't a question for this. This was a question from the previous discussion.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but when we do executive, or what do we call it now? Business session, I'll bring that back. But I'm in favor of this 100%.
Okay. Anybody else on the committee? Would you like to comment now or just wait till business session? Or do you have any questions on this? I think most of us are familiar with the fact that we did have 2 resolutions requesting that this 6th Avenue protected bike lane be extended south. And we had hoped to Canal Street. Right now it goes down to 8th Street or Greenwich Avenue, 8th Street on the east, Greenwich Avenue on the west. So let me see if our guests have any questions. Indeed, we have two folks, actually three. And the first is Darlene Lutz. Darlene, are you there? And if you are,
I am here.
Okay, hi there.
Hi, everybody. Y'all look good. Darlene Lutz from West Soho. I'm right on the axis of Canal, 6th Avenue, and Varick Street. I have a full view. So I understand, I think bike lane is a great idea, but I want to give a bit of a view from what I can see here. And right now, and this is pretty consistent, the 2 blocks from Canal to Watt Street, which lead into the tunnel, are occupied by the NYPD. There's a command center, a temporary or maybe semi-permanent command center where they have we have a ton of NYPD down here that are coming in from all sectors. They kind of get their detail assignments in this area and then they go out to other areas. I can't explain how many NYPD there are down here. I've never felt safer, but they're not going anywhere and they line the streets. So if I don't think a bike lane is really possible to Canal Street at this point because there's really no area down here. The streets are occupied by our law enforcement. I would suggest maybe hopping up past Broome Street or maybe even Houston to entertain that idea. But I think everybody is kind of aware that there is the friction between bikes and the NYPD. I don't think we want to give that any more entertainment at this point. I wanted to make one other quick point about what it's like here and what it has been like in terms of watching traffic, which I can see the exit of the Holland Tunnel from my house. So I can see how much volume of traffic is coming into New York City from the Holland Tunnel every day. And that is on a huge buildup. I don't think a lot of people realize how much traffic is now coming into the city. And one of the factors that we have going on in the city, which has never happened in the 40 years that I've lived here, is the volume of Fast and Furious Mad Max vehicles that are roaming the streets day and night. It's not just this neighborhood, it is everywhere. And I think it's kind of terrorizing people. I see a lot of people biking on the sidewalks because of this. So I think if the DOT and obviously I've had words with the NYPD, what can I say? You know, guys like hot cars. You know, they like cars that make a lot of noise and they like motorcycles that make a lot of noise. So this whole phenomena is new and I would like to see it, you know, obviously it's totally legal to modify your exhaust system to make this kind of noise. But the volume of these cars racing and motorcycles racing around is kind of unbelievable. And the weather is only getting warmer. So I think if we want to look at safer streets, all safer streets and not just closing streets, but getting the streets safer at this time, we have to look into that. And, you know, that has to be paid attention to. But those are.
Darlene, are you, but you're really not talking anymore about the request, right?
Yes,
we have to move on.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. That was interesting what you said. Okay, so Andrew Chang.
Okay, everybody have a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Darlene. We have Andrew Chang from Borough President Gail Brewer's office, Manhattan Borough President. So Andrew, where are you? I'm looking for you. Do you unmute yourself?
Oh, sorry, that was an accident.
Okay, we hear you now.
Sorry, I didn't mean to raise my hand. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Okay, and Ellen Baer. And Ellen, are you ready to talk? Ellen from the Hudson
I am.
Square
Hi.
Section Bid.
Hi.
Hi, Ellen.
We are excited about the idea of additional bike lanes in Hudson Square. We expect to have a lot of people biking into our neighborhood. We are concerned, though, about that strip between Watts and Canal because that is currently where the buses come up. They come up 6th Avenue and they make that turn onto Watts, get into the tunnel. Now, DOT has talked, you may remember, Shirley, under the West Village, Hudson Square West Village traffic and whatever it's called, transportation study.
Yeah, I do.
They did talk about moving the buses off Watts and having them make that turn on Canal. But until that happens, I just want everybody to know that that's a dangerous situation. I'm not sure what the volume of buses is right now during the pause, but I do want to make you aware of that situation there.
And Ellen, just to clarify, you mean buses coming up 6th Avenue, turning left on the Watts, and then entering the tunnel, is that correct?
That's correct.
Right, just so everybody's clear.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Ellen. Okay, anybody else? I guess not. So we will move on to our.
There was a raised hand from Katie on the.
Oh, okay, yes, I'm right back to the panel.
I think Dan had his hand up for a second there as well.
Okay, Katie Bordenaro, thank you for telling me, Carter. I was back with the attendees, back to the panelists. And Katie, are you there? No, but Dan is. So Dan, who is.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Oh,
This
wait,
is Katie. Can you
there
hear me
you
now?
are. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Oh,
Dan, hold on. We'll get to you too.
I just wanted to be clear with what Darlene was saying. Is she saying that police cars are parked in the area where we want to put a bike lane north of Canal Street? Is that the police department is using that as a designated parking zone for the private cars of the police? Is that what we're hearing?
Well, it sounded like it. It sounded like there was general police activity.
I walked by there today, and the police were parked at the curb. They were in a.
Darlene, do you want to respond to that?
Am I unmuted? I'm unmuted.
Yes, yes,
Sure, I would.
unmuted.
Yeah. Yes, the command center is on 6th Avenue, on the east side of 6th Avenue, between Grand and Watts Street. That is where the command center vehicle is, and the rest line up. We have, it's not only the PD is bringing in its the PD itself. Staff of the PD, our officers, are driving in from wherever they live. They're parking their cars on the streets around here, and they get their assignments. They get into their patrol vehicles, and they go off to their own detail assignments.
Darlene, are the patrol vehicles parked on 6th Avenue by the command center, and then they pick them up from there, or are the patrol vehicles somewhere else?
No, the patrol vehicles are on 6th Avenue between Canal and Watts Street, both sides.
And then the command center is there permanent. And then the command center is permanently parked on 6th Avenue between Watts and Grand.
And has been there for 8 weeks. But
okay,
this
just trying to get see what's going on. Thank you.
I would be happy. I would be happy to give you photographs, which I have. I can easily text them.
Okay, I'll communicate with you offline so I can see those. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Darlene.
Hi.
Okay, so Dan, we're back.
Yeah.
To
so,
Miller.
am my audio working right now?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. So, as someone who works in Tribeca and avoids 6th Avenue because it's too busy, and knowing that up to Canal in Tribeca, it's bumper to bumper, but just north of Canal, it's actually open on the east side, not on the west side, as a permanent structure. It would be incredibly safer for cyclists to actually ride up on the east and then cross over later. So whatever's happening with the NYPD now is temporary. But I think, Janet, if you could just clarify this, you're looking for something more permanent.
Well, permanent's always wonderful, but what we're voting on here right now is something that can be put in quickly to accommodate, the current situation and to provide safe passage for people.
Right. So to Ellen's point, she's absolutely right. The buses take a left on Watts. You can't put a bike lane on the western side of that block. But on the eastern side of the block, prior to the lockdown, it was very easily rideable. So it's something that I would like us to continue to consider.
Well, we can discuss it in business session in the committee, and Dan, you're on the committee, so you can give more input then.
And also, I might add that if people are worried about speeding, one way to address that is to, because it is a speedway there on 6th Avenue, is to narrow down the road space a bit. So the bike lane would address that issue.
Okay, I think we have gotten all our questions on that. We can move on to number 3, and I will read the request, which is for the addition of temporary protective barriers to the bike lane on West Houston Street between Washington and West Streets to provide safer access to the Hudson River Park Greenway until more permanent safety improvements can be added. And this is from Janine Kiley. Janine, I see your face. Are you unmuted?
Whoops.
There
Double
you
unmute. Hi, when you tried to bike down, well, I would go down Prince Street and then eventually went at the last minute turn on West Houston to get to the Hudson River Park Greenway. The last block is particularly precarious between Washington and West Street. There's no longer, it's now open to the sky, but with construction, even prior to construction, there's a right turn lane and there's a left turn or straightaway lane, and wedged between that is a bike lane. And often it's dangerous to be in that bike lane because you're wedged between trucks turning left and right. And I typically would opt to walk my bike on the sidewalk for that last block and then get back on, or walk and then get a city bike on the other side. And I think it would be a lot safer in terms of access to have some kind of barricades, almost like construction barricades or what we were talking about on 6th Avenue, protecting the bike lane and clearly delineating where it begins and ends so trucks can't sort of squeeze you out. And I think that would add a lot of safety options, because I think a lot of people who are able to will prefer biking to public transportation options. And once you get to the Greenway, it's a pretty safe ride. And I just want to improve the safety for people trying to reach the Greenway, in particular for people going to schools south or north of Houston Street. South, it's a straight shot to 89, 289 Stuyvesant High School and 276, and north there's a ton of high schools in schools in the 42nd Street area. So I think that would be a great way to access the Greenway for anyone using public transportation.
Okay, thank you. So anybody on the committee have any questions or comments or whatever? Okay, let us go and see if our attendees have any hands raised. No. So I think that concludes the 3 items on our agenda. And now
Shirley, can I please interject? This goes back to question or our topic number 1. We had a question that came in through chat for Jennifer.
Jennifer, are you still with us? Yep.
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's a question from Jan Lee, and they were asking about Chinatown and whether there were any streets that DOT had in mind for street closure, and whether there would be any opportunity for the community to provide input, because it had been mentioned in the media.
In terms of applications for Chinatown, I guess the question is, did someone apply? Because right now, I don't know if there were any streets in Chinatown so far that was actually proposed.
I think this might be based on the conversations that we had last week and not on progression of the program. But at this point, the community board is no longer making any recommendation as far as specific streets. The application process is initiated by community groups, et cetera, that Jennifer had reviewed earlier.
So again, Jennifer, as you said, what would apply would be to learn about the guidelines, get an application, and apply for streets that they might be interested in doing an open street on, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Right, anything else come up, Ritu?
That's it.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so now we will go into business session. And for those that do not know what business session is, it is when we deliberate. And all of our guests who are not community board members are welcome to hear, stay online, observe, hear, but we do not take any more input from the public at this point. So with that, I think let's committee. Let's go to item one.
Did you ever call Carly?
I'm sorry?
Oh, she said to show you something on my phone.
Well, who's that?
It's Patricia. Gotta unmute Patricia.
Patricia? Did you want to say something? You didn't raise your hand, so I didn't see you.
I apologize. No, I'm sorry.
You don't want to say anything? Okay.
No.
Well, I think we have to move into business session anyhow, or else, we might sleep here. Actually, we can sleep here, right? We're mostly at home. New rules. So anyhow, item number one, that really was an informational thing. And I think that I tried to take awfully good notes about what you said, Jennifer. And we also have guidelines from DOT. And does the committee have any opinions on whether you think we should be sending these guidelines to our total list again? Carter is chair of the board. How do you feel about that?
For sending I'm sorry.
The DOT guidelines, which we have not yet done, to the full community board list. We sent them to park associations.
But I think that the DOT is running the program now, so I'm not, our guidelines are not the DOT's guidelines.
I mean the DOT guidelines as a service to DOT and to the community.
Yeah, no, I understand now what you mean. I think that at this point, they're still working out a lot of the kinks and the issues. And I think that as we get better information, as they work out some of the program, a lot of our smaller community groups don't from, what we heard tonight, don't seem to be quite there yet in sort of understanding a lot of the smaller programs, and DOT doesn't quite have the guidelines, and most of the larger groups, I think, are aware of them. And we can certainly send them out, but it seems like this is an evolving program. And, when a lot of our reach is to the community groups. And so when we have a little more information, I think we've got 5 months of warm weather. And I think that the governor's New York on pause, that I believe that that's what allows him to have emergency powers. So we're going to have some aspects of New York on pause for quite some time. And we're in the first week as we go. We've got a long way to go. So it's, I think there's a little more clarity.
Okay. Somebody else?
Yeah,
something. Who is that?
Lois has
raise your
her hand up.
Okay. Lois, Racco. Okay.
Okay, in regard to what Carter's saying, I agree with him that we have like a long way to go, but I think this committee, at least with Shirley and our input, should send out bullets of I took notes, I'm sure all of us took notes about what it would entail to do this partnership of an open street. And at least it would give the block associations and so on, an idea of the ramifications of what is needed. Like not the bones, not the bolts, but general outline of what is necessary. I think it's very simple, and I think we should send it out because I know
Well,
I'm going to be asked 20 questions.
okay, I'm going to kind of respond to Lois too and just say, yes, I took copious notes, I think. And I certainly am prepared to prepare a report based on those notes. And by the way, I would appreciate input from the entire committee. Anyone who took notes, please send them to me immediately. And then we can have a full report. That would go to the full board. And so that it would be right there in our report at the full board meeting. Janet, you had raised your hand, I saw. And
yeah, and in deference to DOT, I really appreciate that they're trying to respond to the situation we have. So I also think they're trying to keep the program simple, and the rules may evolve as it gets rolled out because they'll see what works. You know, so there's going to be iterations of it. So it you know, it's not going to be perfect because that's not the intention of it. So I think getting out the information that we have now is actually kind of important.
You mean the information that we've received from DOT?
Yeah.
Besides our report. Okay.
I mean, rather than waiting, because it will evolve with time probably.
Okay, and I see that Dan raised his hand. Dan?
Yes. You know, if it's possible, I actually agree with both Lois and Carter. We have an evolving situation. The rules aren't set yet. I think Lois nailed it when she says there are a lot of responsibilities that the Department of Transportation is asking for, but it's very difficult for a non-bid, non-staffed organization to actually follow through with that. So, I mean, my concern is it'll be difficult to find volunteers to execute the tasks required by the current guidelines because, for lack of a better term, they're loosey-goosey right now and they're evolving.
Well, I also think it's a very heavy lift for any non-bid entity to man the streets for a 12-hour period. Most organizations won't be able to do that on a regular basis. So
Right, Rachel. But she said that you could have it open for like an hour on Saturday if you wanted to. They would accept those applications. So if you wanted to have it open from 1 to 2 on Saturday.
Well, hold on, everybody. It's just really the manner of how we get the information out to the community. And I think so far more people have felt that probably our report with a lot of the details will be sufficient for now, but I may be wrong. And I see a lot of other people raising their hand. Do you want to say more, Dan? I didn't mean to interrupt you because I see your hand is still up.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to just say I like the flexibility that you could just take an hour on a week, one day, and that would be an acceptable application. I thought that was something that was worth looking at, and maybe a small organization could handle that.
Well, they do prefer a minimum of 6 hours, but it can't just be 6 hours every Saturday, which is still fairly manageable for a group of people.
I think we're getting into other territory.
Okay, yeah.
We're not talking about the merits of what they're offering, but more, how do we tell the community? Anyhow, Katie Bordenaro, she's up again. Katie, do you hear me? And are you ready to?
I hear you. Do you hear me?
There you are. Yes, I see your phone.
I mean, I hear two things going on. One, I hear, you know, what DOT is telling us, and there does seem to be a great deal of openness. But I also hear the concerns of some of the groups who can't meet the most intense requirements. Is there some way for us to categorize that? What community groups think they might offer? They can't offer 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. But as Dan said, a community group could apply for Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons, in May. Maybe they just want to do 4 of them. Is there some way to communicate that flexibility and the concerns of the community groups?
Well, I can answer. I think that she very clearly, Jen very clearly said that there is great flexibility and that you can even test it out, like one day in May, as you said, Katie. Jen, do you want to extend on that? Are you there still? Yeah.
Yes, I'm here. So yeah, certainly if, there's a, say like a couple of volunteers and they want to do it every Saturday for say like 2 hours, I think that's something that we would be willing to look at. If say like we do approve it and we select that particular block and say like they tried it for that first weekend, it was, it worked out, then we'll do it again. But then if over time, if they find that, this is too much work, this is not working for us, then we're okay to not continue to have that open streets. Or if there's, say like within that first day that they started doing it for 2 hours and it just doesn't work, then they're like, okay, then we can't continue to do it. Does that help?
Yes,
That
does
answer
help.
your question, Katie?
Yes, and I think we have to include that in, whatever.
It's in my notes.
Yeah,
And
I do
it's
think it's
actually in the DOT guidelines. There is a set of guidelines that DOT has published, and it's very explicit, all this
I've
stuff.
seen some of them. I don't know if I've seen all of them.
Yeah, Janet, but I think the idea is to recruit folks to actually make them feel less afraid of applying. And I think that flexibility is actually very appealing so that they don't feel like it's going to be too burdensome.
Understood.
Okay,
I think that's
emphasize that in my
how we
notes,
could proceed.
sure, okay. And Carl Dawson next. Carl, you with us? Carl, unmute. You there?
Here we go. Can you hear me?
There you are.
There. Hi, Shirley. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I would be inclined, since this is a DOT initiative, to just make that information from DOT as broadly available as we can and not add on to that, because it's not coming from the community board. This is a program that is designed by DOT. I find it incredibly unlikely that anyone's going to sign up for this. But if it does, I would view the community board's role as providing input on how it's going and if modifications need to be made. I worry about there being a misperception of this being designed by the community board. It's not. It's something that is a DOT initiative to try and make things better. And it either will be received or not received by the community. And the way it will be done is if people actually sign up to do it. And I feel like this is going to be a very torturous ongoing conversation if we keep revisiting all the possibilities, because they're kind of endless and infinite right now. But if we actually have people, volunteer and say they're going to work with DOT to do this, something that we really can collaborate on is how well and effective that's happening. So that's my 3 cents on that. But as it's a DOT, I would just forward there.
Okay, Michael Levine.
Yes, yes, I think it's a good idea to distribute the DOT guidelines, but when we do that, I think in doing so, surely the community board, again, it's correct, it's not our program, it's DOT. I think the one thing we need to reiterate without adding too much baggage to it is that the community groups and the bids and any other organizations involved are doing this purely voluntarily, and to stress that there is no backup from police department or any other city agency. When they're out there on the street, when it is open to pedestrians, and close to traffic, that they're on their own, that they're responsible for setting up barriers, removing barriers, storing them properly, and following all of DOT guidelines. I think that's really all we need to say to make it clear to the community organizations what they're volunteering for.
Okay, thanks, Michael. And Lois, are we back to you, Lois? Or have you said what you wanted to? Because I see your hands.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. When I think, Shirley, that we as a committee worked very hard this past hour doing the subtleties of asking questions about the partnership, and that it's perhaps in some of the guidelines for the DOT, these subtleties are not going to be mentioned. And I think that we should we're not giving the guidelines, we're just giving some of the conversation and the dialogue that we had for the past hour. And I think that should go out to our community.
Okay. Well,
And my question, okay?
that's going to go out to the community in our report for sure.
Good. Okay, my other question
Everybody
was.
on the committee, do send me your notes immediately.
Yes.
So I can
I can't
integrate them into whatever my notes are. So that's for
Okay.
sure. The only other question was whether we also share the DOT guidelines. And I'm beginning to have a sense that more people are not in favor of that, but I could be wrong. Maybe we could use our raise hand application. And I think this is really for the committee to weigh in on. And Carter, do you have any strong feelings about, I mean, I think we should get a consensus on this one way or the other.
I'm not sure I understand.
Shall
I
we
mean,
just ask the committee, or shall we have all board members weighing in right now?
well, just to clarify, what is it that you want to do? I mean, if we forward that the DOT
This is
has
just
this
simply
program.
to distribute, whether or not to distribute the DOT guidelines that were sent.
Yeah, we just put it on, you know, here's where you can apply to, you know, if you're interested in closing your block. I mean, that's, we're not a decision maker. I said we can just distribute, you know, here's the link, here's the Survey Monkey form that you can fill out if you're interested in closing down your block. I mean, DOT is the...
I'm asking for a vote right now. Shall just the committee vote? That's usually the way in a committee meeting. But
Okay, no, great. I understand, but I'm just not sure I'm understanding what you're voting on.
We're voting on whether to distribute the guidelines from DOT. There have been
that's not anything that requires a vote. We just do it in a mailing. We send out and say, here's the DOT program. Like we send out information from anybody else. It's not a...
But Carter, I think what Shirley is asking is whether the committee is supportive of that and whether that should be a broader consensus of all the board members that are participating right now. Is that correct, Shirley?
Yes, I'm simply asking. This is business session. This is when we discuss these actions. I think it is an action because there are so many folks present here that we should vote on because there seems to be a difference of opinion. And I'm not really sure if it's an even one or not. All I'm asking is whether we should have
vote.
Committee come out.
Well, guys, in order to ratify, I mean, you know, this program's here. If it's something that people tend to agree, we can send out the program tomorrow. It's not, I don't understand what the voting.
That's what I'm asking for, is whether people have agreement. Okay, then I will ask, and I will do the Traffic and Transportation Committee only. All people on the Traffic and Transportation Committee, can you please raise your hand if you think we should be sending out the DOT guidelines, probably with a little note that says, this is from DOT specifically. Community Board 2 is not involved in making decisions, but we're just sharing information. If you agree, please raise your hand. Folks on the committee only, okay? So
Shirley, I'm in favor, but cannot raise my hand.
Okay, so we've got Adam, we've got Anthony, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we two makes
yes. Edema, yes, yeah, I agree too.
And that's 7. And let's see, I'm just going to look and see who we haven't.
Yes, from Joe Gallagher, Shirley.
And also Joe Gallagher in favor. So I think that is a majority, that's everybody. So we'll send out the notice. Okay.
So you want to hold off until after the full board meeting to send the notice?
You just said we could send it out tomorrow. I'm getting mixed
Well, I can, but now you've voted on it as an action of the committee, and that requires it going to the full board, which is what I was saying before. I mean, if everybody's saying yes, let's do it, that's different than taking a vote as a resolution. And so I'm just
not a resolution.
This isn't a resolution.
Okay, so this is just everybody's. Okay.
Okay, so we will.
As a substitution for sitting around a table and being able to just all at once say, yes, let's do this.
Well, it's nice to know that everybody is hearing me and I'm hearing them and seeing your hands raised. Okay, so we go on to item 2, which is the request for the protected bike lane being extended from 8th Street, Greenwich Avenue, all the way down to Canal. And again, committee, can you raise your hands with your comments, please? Or
And I would just second Dan's. I don't know, do we want to vote on whether it should be on the east side? Or is that something we need to weigh in on?
I think
we're having a discussion. This is business committee now. And Dan raised his hand first. So let's hear what you have to say, Dan.
Sorry.
Dan? Can't hear you. Dan? Unmute? Nope.
Mute now. Yeah?
Okay.
Now you can. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, I pretty much, what I said during the discussion was pretty much what I should have been saying for the business. I just want to second what Janet just said. I feel like it's something that should be permanent, something we've been fighting for the last several years. An East Lane bike. What makes sense about it coming out of East on out of Canal also is that if you're in Tribeca, you're going to be riding your bike on the east side because the buses take the left lane, the west side area. And then at some point, that lane changes over on 6th Avenue to go on the west side. And I believe that could be north of Watts. So I would just say we should actually be very particular in the way we design where this lane would be structured. I don't look at it as a temporary structure. I'm not quite sure I understood what Darlene was talking about, a permanent terrorist police station. It's not my experience, who's there every day, that I've seen that. At least it hasn't been blocking bike traffic. So I'm heavily in favor of a safe way for cyclists to go up 6th Avenue all the way out throughout Community Board 2.
But Dan, we already have a position on that. That's what we discussed last month. We already have a position on a full bike lane. The point that Janet raised is that we want something that they can do this week. You know, that they put up cones and just say, here's the designated area. We already have the position on a bike lane.
So then the position, then what we should say is the cone should be.
I'm sorry, let me clarify. If you look at the agenda, it's for a temporary bike lane. It was because the feeling was that there was enough open space, so to speak, on 6th Avenue right now to accommodate bicyclists safely down south.
To Ellen Bear's
and
point,
that was the request that was on the agenda was for temporary.
Well, even if it is temporary, which it should be temporary, it shouldn't be on the west side.
Right.
Because buses still leave on the left side of the street. So it can't really be shared on the left side. Even if it's temporary, doesn't matter to me.
And I think it's a good opportunity to set up a precedent for the permanent request. And so just having a resolution that states this is what we would like, and we recommend this is the path or the route from this block to that block, I think would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And next is Adam Zeldin. Adam, do you hear me? Oh, good.
I can, thank you. I think my point has been addressed. I'm going to lower my hand. Sorry.
Your point being what?
Just about the side of the street and how we were going to do that. And the only other thing that I would add about, I think, Darlene's comments was, you know, she was talking about speeding cars. And I think that if we're able to, through the temporary bike lane, narrow the width of the street, that would have an effect of reducing the speed of the cars. So that could be another kind of whereas that we could include in this resolution, is just, you know, that it's a very wide street and there is a large number of people who are speeding recklessly down that street. And by narrowing the street, we might be able to slow traffic a little bit.
Okay. I just want to ask, you did hear Ellen Bear. This has been an issue that's been discussed a long time. I'm asking the whole committee. And she was talking about the bike lane that goes south of Houston. It is going to be going south of Houston in Hudson Square. And her concerns about Watt Street. And Janet, yes.
I think though, we've just addressed that. She's concerned about the buses coming up and taking the left on Watt. So as long as the bike lane continues up the east and then crosses over, we've addressed her concern.
Okay.
And I just want to second what, this is a good opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. What Adam said, that to maybe make it a slightly more robust structure than usual, because that would reduce the speeding as well.
Okay.
They should consider.
So again, we have to do, well, wait a minute, William Benish.
Hi, I just had a question. Are we aware of other instances throughout the city where a bike lane changes sides across a busy avenue? Is there a safe place to do that?
You do that when you come down Broadway, and then you got to go cross. You got to cross 6th Avenue or 7th Avenue to get back to the rest of the Broadway lane. Church Street used to switch sides. 8th Avenue, coming up north on 8th Avenue to get over to Columbus Circle, I think it switched sides.
Herald Square switches sides. Yes, so there's a precedent.
I mean, if I could make a possible suggestion, there's a place on 6th Avenue where Dominic runs into, I think it's Spring Street Park, and there's a crossing. So I don't know if it's safer to cross there where no one's turning than an intersection, but just a thought.
Yeah.
I think anywhere north below 8th Street is fine to cross over. I think you just want to make sure that at some point you're connecting the two bike paths.
Okay.
So I think you're right,
So
William.
that should be included in the resolution. You got that, Janet?
Yes.
Okay.
And if people like that point on Dominic, I can look at a map.
I just know, I believe there's a crosswalk there.
The crossing what were you saying, Dan, that the crossing, any place?
No,
north?
I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be at Watts. I think that's actually a bad idea to put it at Watts. It should be further north than that. And I think that the ideas just being presented are very good ones, and that as long as the bike path connects at 8th Street, whatever is the safest makes most sense. In some ways, Houston is natural because you almost always have to stop your bike at that point because it's a three-way intersection. So that should also be a consideration.
And West 3rd Street's another good one because everybody coming off West 3rd has to turn right. So it's easy to cross.
So maybe we can actually put in a few suggestions in the resolution and then leave it up to DOT. So anyhow, thank you. And I guess, so committee, it's really basically, it would be a resolution in favor of the extension of the bike lane from 8th Street, Greenwich Avenue, south to Canal Street, on the east side at a certain point. Some of those points have been suggested right now at Dominic Street, at West 3rd, and at Houston as possibilities, but someplace north of Canal Street and south of, obviously, 8th and Greenwich Avenue. So we need a vote.
We've got Lois raising her hand.
Oh, there you go, Lois, and Dan is raising his hand, probably in favor, right?
Yes.
That's correct. I'm in favor, so I'm not, no more
Okay,
comment.
before we go on, Lois, you had something to add.
Just to mention, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mentioned there's a fire station on 6th Avenue on the west side. Will that be taken into account?
That's right, south of Houston. You're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Lois, I can answer that.
That'd be a good place to switch to the east. Okay, yes, sorry, Rita.
Well, over there, it breaks off. There's a Y intersection, and then there's Houston, and then there's 6th Avenue in Bedford. And so the bike lane actually could be 1 or 2 lanes away from the entrance of the fire station. But yes, that would be taken into consideration.
Fine.
Okay, great. Everybody had their say now? Okay. Now we vote. So how many in favor on the committee, remember?
We do it the old
You're a
fashioned way.
little, and
How about this
anybody
way,
that
Shirley?
can't raise their hand on our participant list, our panelist list, just call out Ritu.
I'm in favor.
Okay, and I see Lois, Janet, Dan, Anthony, Adam, you raised your hand. And Ed, are you with us still? There you are, Ed. I see Ed. Oh, and Joe. Joe. Woo-hoo-hoo. Joe, are you there? Well, I guess.
He's muted.
Oh, he's muted. Joe, unmute yourself. Ed, unmute yourself. Okay. So in this case, I guess who's present are the ones that count, I presume. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is me. And let's see, who are we missing then? Missing Joe, missing Ed, Lois. I think Lois did say yes before.
She's raised her hand.
She has.
Yeah, I see her hand up.
Okay. Anthony.
Anthony
Yes.
has.
Yeah, okay. And we have Adam. So it's everybody except Joe and who else was it? I'm losing track now. Oh, Ed. Ed, are you there? Can you unmute yourself? How about you, Joe? Well, we'll assume they're not present. I'm not quite sure how we do this. Carter, do you have any ideas?
Well, Ed is present, but we just can't hear him.
And
Well,
Joe
has
is
raised his
present
hand?
as well.
I may have stepped away.
And Joe just may have stepped away.
Okay. So the question is, do we say unanimous or do we say?
I think you say up.
6, 7, 7.
Ed, are you in favor or against? Just nod your head.
Can't see him. Do you see him?
I can see him, but I think his screen is frozen.
Oh dear.
It could be his
funny
Wi-Fi.
technical problems.
Well, it could be his Wi-Fi.
I'm just trying to get a count. I mean, either way it passes, but the question is whether we do, how many did we say?
Maybe it should be abstain unless they inform you if they're having technical
Okay,
issues.
good idea. Okay, so we'll do it that way. So regardless, it passes.
Yes.
And it's two Ed and
Joe Gallagher.
And Joe Gallagher abstain. Okay. And the rest are okay. Okay, so we're finally on to item 3, which Janine Kiley presented. And is there any discussion? Anybody? No. Okay. So again, how about let's raising our hands if we are in favor. In the committee, everybody on the committee? Adam, yep, I got you.
Ritu's in favor.
Ritu's in favor. And Ed, are you there? And Joe, you're in favor. Oh, Joe, now that we have you, were you also in favor? Joe, do you hear me?
Yes, I do. I'm sorry, I missed you.
How about number 2?
Yes, also.
Okay, so then we you also, and so we just, everybody is in favor, except we will have Ed abstaining, and I think we're done. Wow. Okay.
Well
So,
done.
Thanks to all of you for staying with us, community board members. Pat Comerford, thank you for sticking with us. And for our attendees, there are 8 remaining, and we appreciate your staying with us. And let's see, it's Thursday, we've got Friday, yet is the weekday, but I will say to all of you, have a good weekend. And committee, I will be getting out those resolutions to you, and we'll be waiting back then for your additional comments and edits and so forth. So thanks, and hey, have a good weekend, unless we meet again before then. Bye.
You too, Shirley. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Good
Shirley.
night. Hi, thanks, Shirley.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you,
Good night.
Shirley.
Bye.